I think if you were to turn up at a nuclear facility and say, "Hey, I'm here to disrupt your nuclear facility," and you wouldn't be on the premises for very long.
Hey, this is Helen Dawson, and you're listening to the Innovation Crowd podcast. Businesses are looking to reinvent themselves, be more digital, more sustainable, and thrive in a volatile world. Yet most corporate innovation programs don't deliver. In fact, many don't even survive after their second birthday. On this show, I sit down with the experts to discuss the strategies that work, so you don't have to learn the hard way. So come and join me in the Innovation Crowd. Welcome back. I'm Helen Dawson, and this is the Innovation Crowd. So nuclear is about as unforgiving as engineering gets, safety critical, heavily regulated, but right at the fore of what different countries in their energy transition need. Move fast and break things really isn't an option. So my guest today has a viewpoint on why we should be innovating more in this sector and why we shouldn't let ourselves be strangled by governance and process. So I'd like to welcome Graham Openshaw, who's Operations Director for Digital at Assystem. And his view is that we should all do proper governance and sponsorship because that allows us to manage these risks and move faster. So welcome, Graham.
Hello, Helen. Nice to be here.
Why don't you give the audience a little bit of context into Assystem and its role in digitalising new nuclear?
So, Assystem has been around for quite a long time now. It started as a French quality management company for the nuclear fleet, and now it's grown to I think we're now the second largest independent nuclear consultancy globally. We've got presence in India, the Middle East, France, the UK. We've also got subsidiaries in Uzbekistan and Australia and now Canada as well. So we're a really global company that a lot of people have never heard of. And our main body of work is in nuclear, but we also work in the defence infrastructure sector as well. And we have teams of people working in linear infrastructure, so roads and rail. My main career experience today has been in nuclear. I've certainly been working for Assystem.
So you once said to me, your view is that nuclear industry has been a really slow adopter of digital. Why do you think it's so hard?
So I think there's two extremes to this. The first one is that if certainly digital space, when we talk about digital transformation, we often talk about things like disruption or, as you said, move fast and break things. And I think if you were to turn up at a nuclear facility and say, "Hey, I'm here to disrupt your nuclear facility," and you wouldn't be on the premises for very long. But equally, what I would say is that there's a bit of a myth around change within nuclear. I have this view that there's a myth that people are resistant to change overall. From my point of view, in my lifetime, we've had the internet, we've had mobile phones, we've got all kinds of changes have appeared, and we've just integrated them into our lives. Now, it's unimaginable now what life is like without the internet. And my children have absolutely no concept of a phone box, for instance, or a record player. It's just not. It's not in their purview. There's just no concept of it. But I was speaking to, I was at an event a couple of weeks ago. I was speaking to a rival podcaster, a lady called Laura Barnard, and she was saying it's actually more fundamental than that. If you think about it, people change school, they get married, they change jobs, they develop careers, they'll have children, and those are huge changes in the way you work in your life. And people just, they don't just do it; they embrace it, they look forward to it. And I think I sort of see similar in nuclear. So I've been involved in nuclear for about 12 years, and I've not known anything but change in all of that time. But when I first started, I worked for Assystem, I work client side with Sellafield, and they were all about changing their operating model and changing the way they collaborate with their supply chain. But then Point C came along. There was some efforts for other large-scale nuclear before Sizewell. We've now got small modular reactors very much in the conversation, specifically in relation to data centers seems to be the direction of travel. And fusion's sort of got a new lease of life, not just in this country, but in the USA as well. So change is something that we're all used to, we're all quite excited about. I think where it then becomes what we pick up on is frustration more at that management level, that management where we are starting to see some change. The government has published the Singleton report, and so it says, this is how the regulator needs to change. So the Office of Nuclear Regulation along with that at the moment. But for us, and it's back to what you're saying at the top. I think there's an issue around governance and the way that the organisations are set up to deliver change, deliver innovation that needs to be examined and needs to be considered. And it is counterintuitive because I think governance is not necessarily a byword for innovation, but when you look at the way the technology is accelerating, the way that we're adopting technology in our own lives and it's not quite mirrored in the workplace, there's more work to be done in enabling that adoption.
It's a really interesting philosophy, isn't it? That we're able to roll with the punches, we're able to make things work once we've started in our personal lives, and yet we go into work and perhaps we're in a kind of victim mentality. If it's not perfect, it's going to be a disaster. We don't have any agency to make it work. Whereas, that is the way the world works. It is the way work works underneath the skin of it. If you look at successful kind of projects or construction projects, they are rolling with the punches. They are adapting to issues that come up. So why do you think that's so hard with digital?
So I suppose from a corporate perspective, I'll give you an example. From my home life, but a little bit close to home. To my wife, she works as an archaeologist and she works in farming as well. So she's working on very early stage construction sites and driving up farm tracks and all that sort of stuff. She drives a Mini. So she had it in for repair about a month ago because the gearbox was falling at the bottom from it, rattling around on all these farm tracks. Everything. And she went to pick it. It'd been fixed. She went to pick it up, and I got a phone call about 2 hours later, and she said, "I bought a new car." And I was like, "Okay," but she'd not bought a new car. She bought a pickup truck.
Nice.
And she'd been talking about it for a little while, to be fair to her. But she'd been and bought this pickup truck. And when you look at that as a process, she's responsible for everything. So she had the frustration. She's driving around an unsuitable vehicle. It reached a breaking point. She then researched the solution to that. She went and not only looked at that, but also looked at the additional benefits she gets with got dogs, so she can drive the dogs around. And then she's responsible for the finance of it. She's responsible for the upkeep of it once we've got it, maintenance, the insurance, absolutely. She's fully responsible, fully accountable. Bear with me here. So, but if you were to do that in, say, any large corporation, let's say it wasn't a pickup truck, you wanted 10 pickup trucks because you've got people driving around your side in minis and they're all upset about it.
You're going back to my early career working on an oil refinery then?
Well, it's probably like one of those specially adapted minis, I guess. But yeah, you might have the point of frustration is disconnected from the person who's got the actual checkbook, and it's disconnected from that person with the frustration may turn up to the maintenance bay and say, "Look, I really, really need to get everybody pickup trucks because this is getting gaff now and we're wasting all this time driving around." or we can't fit what everything we need into these, and like it's a real challenge. And we have to change my whole maintenance operation for all of that. So the process is disconnected. Everybody, by the way, is behaving completely rationally in that environment. They're behaving exactly. Now, if you're responsible for the money and you're going to look after the money, what everybody in that process has got in common is we've given them what I like to call the power of no. And the power of no is intoxicating, because when somebody turns up and they say, "Can I have this thing?" and you go, "No," you've only got to do that 2 or 3 times before you start thinking, "I must be in charge here," because when I say no to things, it doesn't happen. So I hold all the power here. Now, I think what's missing, and this applies the same to any procurement, never mind just the digital procurement, is it's easy to say no to an individual request for a piece of technology. In this case, a pickup truck, or it could be an AI tool. Weirdly, not a laptop. If you wanted a laptop, you're allowed to buy a laptop. But if you want to put anything on it, you've got to have a conversation about it. So I think one of the problems is that it's easy to say no to that. You've got to make it difficult for them to say no, because it's an improvement, because it's going to change the way that the organization benefits from this thing. So again, if we just use the silly example of a pickup truck, if you save somebody half an hour's effort, that works out 15 days effort over the course of half an hour a day works out 15 days effort. You apply that to 10 people, that's half a year of effort that you've saved. Doesn't take much to start accumulating benefits. Again, if you apply that to AI tooling, if you were to save somebody half an hour a day, or a team of 100 people half an hour a day, the benefits are absolutely huge. If me as an individual turn up and say, "Can I have a ChatGPT license?" Why? I just think it's really cool. Very, very easy to say no. If it's, can I have it, and by the way, can my team have it, because we're going to save £10,000 a year? That's a very different concept. So this is where the governance starts to kick in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and on the simplest level, I think I'd say it's that alignment of your interests, which is, I need a pickup truck, could be so much more practical, or I need a ChatGPT license, it would just unlock stuff. But aligning that with the person that is controlling the purse strings. So sometimes it is as simple as doing what you said, which is talking about it in language that they understand, that they care about, not just whether they're an IT person with a target that says, no new systems, I need to keep that under 100, or whether there's somebody that says, I get all these requests for budget, the default is no, unless they say something really compelling that the person that I need to talk to is going to buy into. And I do think with digital particularly, and AI, the talking in tech jargon is a way to lose your audience on that one. Because although everything you're saying might be completely logical, it just sort of pings off the surface, right? Of someone that doesn't speak in that language or think about things in those terms.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think, certainly Assystem, the conversation for us is now shifting to one of operating models. I think the proliferation of AI is really starting to drive that. But again, I think this is absolutely the case for any technology implementation. Is really what we should be talking about is, what's the strategy? How do we win? What do we need to change in the way that we operate? It's fundamental to it. I'd say, I think that my first experience of this was actually, again, not in the digital space. It was working client side with Sellafield. I came in very early in my nuclear career, and I was put in as a project manager. And Sellafield were trying to get this collaborative alliance going. There was Assystem, there was AMEC, Oscar Wheeler at the time, Jacobs and McDonald, all working together. But the way that it was operating, in spite of that aspiration, there were bits of paper flying around everywhere. So you'd get a request, like a task. It was all done on task orders. you get a request coming in and it would say, I want 3 people for 6 months. And then you, as the project manager, would go off and you'd find those 3 people. You'd go, right, here's some CVs. You like them? Oh, yeah, I like those 2. I don't like that one. Right, I'll find another. Find those 3 people. And then something mysterious would happen, and eventually you'd get a purchase order after all our internal recruiters were badgering us to ask where the purchase order's up to. And things sort of happened. It wasn't great. And then the design manager could tell us at the time, it's like, right, we need to sort this out. We're not getting the outcomes we're looking for. And he set up a board structure. So we had something called the Design Service Alliance boards every Wednesday. And that just concentrated all the effort on this one period in the week where if you didn't have your papers ready for Monday, didn't get on the board. If too many people had put stuff in, didn't get on the board. If there were no papers putting in, we didn't have the board because there was nothing to discuss. So, you've got that sort of like action-driven meeting as well, which is really, really good. So that sort of helped with communication and everything. But then the next bit was about the principles of it. And this is sort of like where they started causing a bit of tension in the organisation, because everything that came through had to be done to target cost. I've never seen target cost done as successfully as it was there. And I think it's a really good commercial incentivization model that is often not quite. So we've got target cost. They've sort of said, everything needs to come through scope work. We're not placing work for individuals anymore, apart from 1 or 2 key individuals. But basically everybody needs to follow this process. And it wasn't popular. It drove the right behaviours eventually. As we got used to it, and actually it became a really positive. I found it really positive. More than anything else, those use of principles, it's really a manifestation of strategy. The strategy is this is how we're going to win. And how we're going to win is we're going to do scope work, we're going to pull risk with our supply chain, we're going to share success, we're going to share failure. And that then became the grounding point for us to start innovating elsewhere as well.
And I think there's something really important that you've said, because it is all strategy, right? Strategy isn't like a PowerPoint that sits there. It is the start of how you do things. It's describing the tactics you're going to take to get the outcomes that you want. And I think that's, often with digital, and I get asked to write a digital strategy, and I'm like, well, the digital strategy is your business strategy, and it's just some tactics that you're going to use with digital to achieve that, but it shouldn't be separate. And I think there's a lot of, I'm fine to write a digital strategy if it's closing that gap on tactics, but I find it quite an odd industry that's grown up about digital strategy when there is no digital strategy, there is just strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right. And I think the key word you use there is outcome as well. So, what are we trying to achieve here? I think that's the bit that's been missing from several conversations by over the years.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned operating model, didn't you? And I think operating model is part of that. It's part of the how. It's the practicality of how you're going to achieve these things. And principles go along with that. And, sometimes it's going to be inconvenient, because strategy is about making a choice, right? And it's making a choice to collaborate. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But overall, in the round, your company is going to come out better and the project's going to come out better. So I think that's the other thing that people kind of don't. They want to have everything, and you can't. You're going to make choices. And actually, even if you don't make choices, your people are going to make choices, because they're going to choose what initiatives get airtime or how they're going to behave, right? So you might as well set out your stall and ask for what you want as a leadership team, rather than just let it default to whatever ecosystem evolves in that vacuum.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. One of the things that we're really starting to challenge in my part of the world is the difference between cost and value,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make sure that we are articulating to the business whether that is a return on investment or whether that is simply the ability to do things more effectively, or provide a better service to our customer. But
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about the value rather than focusing on the cost. Compromise is part of that. That's why I'm obsessed with this idea of technical debt.
Yes. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's a really negative way of saying we're going to have to make some compromises here. So it's almost the idea that there is a perfect solution out there
Mm-hmm.
that you're not choosing, probably because it doesn't exist. And by not choosing it, you're going to have to incur this debt that you're going to have to repay at a later date. Well, I'm sorry, but every choice that I make in my life has got some form of compromise to it. Every choice we make as a business, not everybody is going to get absolutely everything that they want. It's not a deficit. As long as everybody is in a positive position, then it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. And I do think in life as well as in work, like letting go of the need to get it perfect first time is quite liberating, right? And that's the other way of looking at technical debt. It's like, okay, you didn't get it quite right, and that's going to have some consequences, but that was probably a good decision for speed or meeting another outcome or doing a thing. I think where technical debt becomes a problem is where people ignore it. They ignore that a compromise has been made and feel like it's someone else's problem. But if you're taking accountability for the choices that your business makes, it's fine, isn't it?
So yeah, and no, I think the other side of that is that there's that adoption question as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do go down a route that is problematic, suboptimal, if you've got, well, it's that word again, if you've got your governance right and you're able to implement change on an appropriate scale at the speed that you need to do it, it's not really a problem, or it shouldn't really be a problem for you to sort that out. You might have to a few blushes if you've done something catastrophically wrong, but as you say, that acknowledgement, there's nothing worse than implementing a solution where all the end users are going, my God, like this is terrible, and the leadership are going, yes, great, this is everything that we wanted, well done everybody. Yeah, there's no more money, so we're not doing it. It's not conducive to a happy or functioning organisation.
I know, many years ago, oh God, early 2000s. So it was a SAP deployment in ExxonMobil, and I was leading some user acceptance testing. And I was in the lift with like CTO, and he's like, "How's it going, Helen?" When you're asked and they want you to tell a good news story. And I said, "Oh, well, we've got these defects and, it's a bit of a problem and need to be fixed." And he said, "Oh, is there a workaround?" And I was like, "Yeah, the workaround is not to use the system." Anyway, got out of his floor. That defect was fixed the next day. It was fine. But, but a lot of the time that wouldn't happen, right? In an organization, people wouldn't say, they would just go along with it. And it's like, well, that's a choice, isn't it? It's a career choice for me to risk career suicide to do it. But I think the thing about governance is if you're governing health and safety, it's the same sort of approaches to governing digital. And if you know how to do good governance, why is it so hard to translate it across?
It's interesting. Again, it's something that I've been scratching my head around. So I don't think it's any secret that if you were applying to responding to an ITT for a customer, you tell them everything. You tell them exactly what you're going to do. You tell them who's going to be working on it. You tell them exactly what it's going to cost. But we don't seem to treat internal initiatives with the same respect. And I think that's a problem. So again, if I use nuclear as an example, if you've got any operating facility, I suppose, your priority is going to be safety, and your priority is going to be keeping that plant going.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a list of items every year that will go through it and they'll cut the budget to, well, we need to fix this, we need to replace that, we need to maintain. And there's not a lot of space in there for innovation. So if you've not got a good story to tell and you can't explain the impact that that innovation project is going to have on either the budget or the long-term health of the client or safety or anything like that, you're probably not going to feature very high in the priority list of that, of the activities that we run through. So yeah, I think that is a problem. It's people know what the best practice is, and yet still cut corners, particularly when it's their own internal initiatives. It's something I've observed a lot of, and still don't fully understand why that happens. I mean, I know what the remedy is. The remedy again at Assystem, we've set up a very specific steering committee where we distill all those innovation requests, I suppose you want to call them that, through one part of the organisation. We secure the budget, we explain the internal investment, we talk about the value, then we get the approvals to proceed and manage it as a project, rather than, again, what you tend to see is a lot of pockets of people doing stuff under their own steam.
Yeah, and I wonder sometimes that the budget for an a digital project is justified, and then that's the last time that someone talks about the outcome, and they only focus on milestones and cost. And of course, then you potentially compromise the outcome to deliver on the things that technical team gets rewarded for. And, people have attempted with the role of product owner to do that, but I don't think it is a product owner role. I think it's a leadership role. Sitting over that is being absolutely clear on the outcomes of an investment, just like it was an investment in a pump, a new heat exchanger, or anything else. It's an investment, isn't it? I think the other thing I see if this chimes with your clients or your steering team. So sometimes people withdraw to only focusing on kind of cost-related initiatives because it's easier to prove. When actually, if we look at technologies, especially like AI, one of the big opportunities I see is being able to make better decisions or being able to analyze more data in a timely fashion to improve decision-making. But yet, even though we know some things are painful to compute, or we use rules of thumb, or we just have to make decisions with the information made at the time, that feels like a harder thing to get buy-in to than saying, this is going to save 15 minutes of someone's time.
So I think we're at a little bit of an advantage as a supply chain company. And the reason I say that is that we don't just have a bottom line to worry ourselves with. I appreciate a lot of our clients, they have top line as well, but we live and die by our top line revenue. And one of the areas that we can sort of demonstrate some success in that process and information is in tendering, is in responding to client requests. There might be clients listening to this a little bit horrified by that, or concerned about it, but actually, what we've found so far is rather than saving costs or even time, and we're certainly not saving people in it. And what's happening is our quality is improving because what it gives us the ability to do is to iterate. So when we feed information into a large language model and it produces an answer, rather than our subject matter expert being the author, they're now the checker. And they're taking an objective view of it that they then are less, almost like bought in, or less emotionally attached to the answer. So they will challenge it and they'll shape it. We then pass that back through. We get another answer. Someone else will have a look at it, they'll have a comment on it, and we do that a number of times, rather than the approach that is generally used. Everybody drafts everything. You have a red team review at the end of it, or everybody has their say, and then you do an update. And now that's only one example, but realistically, in that case, it's the client that's providing the feedback on the quality of the output. It's a completely objective view of how you're working with it all. So yeah, I think that's where, it's areas like that where we can start making a difference.
And I think there's a real opportunity around SMRs because it moves into a world of having a kind of repeatable construction, right? Rather than big, bespoke one-offs. It moves you to somewhere where technology can really support that repeatable model because you're constructing the same thing over and over. You're capturing learnings, build digital around that rather than the bespoke build.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is one of the main advantages of small modular reactors is that repeatability. I mean, the big idea is you can also manufacture it under factory conditions rather than trying to do everything in situ and on site. But I do think sort of where we're at the moment, that there are things that artificial intelligence can't do.
Mm-hmm.
We are on first of a kind with small modular reactors. We've not delivered anything like that before. So, one thing that large language models is good at managing large data sets and finding connections between them. You see that in sort of that pharmaceutical industry. That creative process, and engineering is a creative process. It's not going to be as useful for that. So, I would say that it's useful for managing routine tasks about finding the average. But for the creative stuff, for the bit where we need the engineers to do the thinking and solve the interesting problems, that's humans to be focused on doing that problem solving. So yeah, a bit of a mix really. But again, I think it's the same throughout. AI is a tool for us to use. It should not be a replacement for people in engineering, particularly in the sort of industrial industry.
Yeah, I mean, I always say it's an ingredient, not a meal, right? And I think there's lots of tasks, frontier tasks that AI won't have seen before that, like you say, we kind of think that STEM subjects aren't creative. And I think that perhaps that's completely wrong.
It's completely wrong. All STEM subjects they're about collaboration because you have to specialize in a particular area. And you really have to know what you're talking about, because if you get it wrong, you cause a lot. And it is, it's a creative process that we go through. It's a structured creative process that has a lot of checking and approval. But we need that creativity that large language models and that type of technology just can't.
So let me ask you the thing that I ask everybody that comes on here. So what's one lesson you learnt the hard way that you wish someone had just tapped you on the shoulder and told you earlier on in your career?
So I think, and perhaps this relates to the artificial intelligence conversation, I think the most important thing that I've learned is that thinking is working. I think there's an obsession with everybody being busy, being in meetings all the time, being seen to be, I'll be completely honest. I do some of my best work when I'm going for a run or I'm taking the dogs for a walk. I'm away from my desk. I'm not connected to anything. I've just got space to breathe. And I was actually at an event, coincidentally, last week. And I said the same thing. I think one of the things that we should be looking at with artificial intelligence is what does it free us up to do? What headspace does it create? There seems to be this idea that, well, if we use AI, we can get more out of people and we'll be more productive because people would just do more. I think we'll be more productive because we've got more time to think and really start to think about what we're doing and not make mistakes and solve problems. It's kind of the governance issue as well. If you've got, the example I gave, if you've got 2 hours every Wednesday where you're making decisions, you've got the rest of the week where you're not. You're doing stakeholder engagement and you're solving problems that way, collaborating with people rather than responding to every email that comes in, because you can say, well, we're not dealing with that until Wednesday, so let's not deal with that. So yeah, thinking is working. That's my number one.
I love it. And I often tell people, actually, the first thing they should do when they're thinking about AI is go and sit in a darkened room with a notepad and think about what's getting in the way and what would really make a difference. just go and cut yourself off from technology for a while and have a think, because it's easy to be busy rather than spend that time. And especially leaders, like the more and more you go through your career, that you could spend all day just talking to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Having people make demands on you as well, I think. Probably a challenge there as well.
Well, thank you so much, Graham, for coming on. I've really enjoyed our chat, as usual.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks for listening to the Innovation Crowd. Subscribe on your favourite podcasting service so you don't miss a thing. And I'll see you next time.